But Brandon, thank you so much for coming through. I appreciate the opportunity to sit down and talk with you in a longer format, because obviously we did chat at the battle. And I promise you, it's actually so strange how life works, because that event completely changed the direction even where my training is going now.
Really?
Yeah, so I mean, doing that, chatting to the guys, Dom and them, about high rocks, and obviously the exposure to CrossFit has really made me go more. I mean, now I'm doing like 2-3 sessions of high rocks a day.
Oh, really?
I mean, a week, sorry.
What were you doing before that?
I was just running, cycling, and gym.
Okay.
Whereas now I've implemented 2 to 3 high rock sessions a week. So it's really nice, just that little bit of exposure to see, you know, I mean, the bodies of the people there, the physiques that they have is incredible.
Got some work to do.
Yeah, and it's humbling coming from a bodybuilding background. Because a lot of those people look better than some bodybuilders. It's actually exceptional how functional they are with the muscle mass that they have.
Yeah, I think the amazing thing with that sport, I suppose, that new discipline, and obviously it's evolving all the time, is just the focus on getting as much power out of your body. And just, it's almost like this concept of, you know, how much potential does your body have? And it's just such a strength focused thing. So you can just see the style of training, this mix of endurance and power training is just fascinating to watch. And again, like you say, probably been, you know, you come from a bodybuilding background, but you've done a lot of endurance as well. So you appreciate the disciplines of both, and you get to merge them together, you know, in a really cool concept. So,
You mentioned the ability of the human body. And so let's go back to your human body and how you've had to adapt. I mean, you were born, was it a heart defect, or what exactly were you born with? In terms of your heart? Yeah,
so I was born with a defect on my aortic valve. So what they call it is a bicuspid aortic valve. So bicuspid means 2 instead of tricuspid. So everybody's born, if you just think about your valve as a hose pipe, and you know, almost have this little leaflets, or these 3 leaflets, almost like 3 little triangles. So I was born with 2, which means you just basically have a leak on the valve. So what they said from birth is that you would have to have that replaced one day. So the way they hear it, they identify a heart murmur. So they hear this little double beat and this little sound. So from birth, I always told my parents, you know, you're going to have this valve replaced one day. But, you know, our minds, and even back then, they couldn't say when. They just said, like, you know, maybe 40s, mid-40s.
So they said you'll be okay, but sometime...
At some point, you're going to have it replaced, because there's this leak, and obviously they're aware of what happens. So what happens over time is it kind of degenerates, and it builds up this calcification, as they call it. So there's like a narrowing on the valve. So it's almost like if you picture that hose pipe, like I said, and you've got water, or blood in this case, flowing through it to your heart. As that gets narrower and narrower, it causes kind of like a spray, almost like if you hold your finger on the top of a hose pipe. And that then obviously puts a lot of pressure on your heart, because on the other side of that tiny little gap, you've got a lot of, you know, powerful blood now going through there at quite a force. So that then causes an expansion of your aorta as well. So in 2011, at the age of 28, I had to have this valve replaced through open heart surgery. And,
28 and 2011, how old are you now?
I'm 41.
41.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're young.
So, still a baby. Yeah. Let's go with that.
Yeah.
The hairline might disagree, but I'm feeling younger than ever, so that's a good thing.
So at 21, you had
28.
28. Sorry, they gave you. How did they do it?
So they actually showed me what they're going to give me. So what they actually did was they replaced the valve, and they had to replace the aorta itself. So again, talking to that kind of powerful spray. It sounds like a gross way to term it, but if you literally picture that holding the hose pipe when you're watering the garden, there was that extra pressure that was coming. So as it got narrower and narrower, I found that I was actually doing quite a bit of mountain biking at the time, trying to get my fitness up. So historically, I've never been that athletic, and I don't want to make excuses.
Was it because of the heart, so you're always cautious?
I think a little bit, yes, but I was still able to play soccer, cricket. I did a lot of team sports, but often struggled at athletics, because you'd get to a point, it was almost like having a limiter on a car with a good engine, you know. So I never wanted to make excuses for it, but the reality was my heart was different to other kids. You know, it had that limitation, put it that way.
Were you able to go to a certain point and then you kind of just couldn't go? Or
I remember to this day, if I did like cross country, like shorter races was fine because it's like a little burst and it's over. So some of the sprinting races and that, I was never like the worst, but I was never the best. I didn't win. You know, I did like high jump and things like that. I would do well at because of my height and that sort of thing. But in running, if we ever did cross country, that's when I would find that ongoing push of the heart. Like back when you're young, it was probably only 1.2 or 1.5 Ks. But that was a lot for kids. And I always remember at the end of those races, I'd be very short of breath. Like I would never feature in the top 5 or anything like that. So it was, it was just a different journey to sport and health and fitness, I guess, from a young age. And I think the reality is when you're aware of it and you not constantly, I would have these checkups every 2 or 3 years when I was younger. As I got older, you had them less and less, and the doctor said, listen, you're fine, see us in 5 years, that sort of thing. But you had that in the back of your mind that you've got a heart problem the whole time. So I think mentally you almost play yourself down and you don't push as hard and you over listen to your heart, which I think later in life was a blessing, not a curse.
Yeah.
But there was that limitation. But I never ever said, oh, well, I've got a heart problem, so I always tried everything, but you could just see that you were not this, you didn't sort of get the Victor Ladorum, as they call it back then, and those type of things. There was always someone who was better at that. And then I would feature in like the team sports. And so I guess that's why I gravitated towards cricket and soccer in school. And I really enjoyed that. But again, soccer, played on the wing, a lot of running. So, it was just, it was something that you were just aware of. And like I said, I never made excuses for it, but there was a legitimate limitation there. So,
And then 2011, you had the surgery. How is it, like an open heart surgery or?
Yeah, it's a full on. So I've actually got a picture.
Was there a big risk of complications?
I think there's always a big risk. I mean, you're dealing with your heart firstly, so it's your most important muscle. And they did tell us about the risks, but leading up to it, to try and cut a long story short, about a year before, I was mountain biking with a colleague at Riddled Farm down in the south of Joburg. And we did one of these spur races, as you do, and kind of really enjoyed it. And we thought, okay, like I was in that stage of, I'd kind of forgotten about the heart thing a little bit. I was getting fitter, I was getting a bit stronger. And we thought, okay, let's have a go at this. Like, it's not a professional race by any stretch, but we thought, let's see what happens when we push ourselves, to really give this thing a go. And I remember starting out the blocks, it's probably a little rookie error, started a bit too hot, came out and I was sitting in the top 5. And again, you're not dealing with pros, it's kind of just amateurs and people trying to
do some really good riders.
Yeah, some strong riders. So we went out the blocks hot. And then I remember like doing quite well. And then I probably dropped into like 5th or 6th place. Colleague wasn't far behind. And we got to one of these hills and kind of just as we got up the hill, obviously, you had to power down and find that, the extra bit. And I just remember going up that hill and suffering. And like guys were slowly, person would pass 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Next thing I was like in the top 10 or 15. And again, from young, I've never been a super competitive athlete. So it was just like a realization of like, flip, there's something wrong here, So we actually decided to go back a week later and to practice the hills because I thought, okay, if we're going to try and compete and even just have some fun to see how good we can be at the sport, let's give it a go. And we went back a week later, pushed these hills again, suffered again. My colleagues kind of got a rugby background, also bodybuilding, but heavier than I am, but stronger. So he was cruising and he was heavier than me. So I thought on the hills, I should at least be able to keep up. And later that day, I really suffered. Like I was exhausted. My heart just felt quite anxious. Ended up going to hospital and spent 3 days in ICU. Sure. And they kind of said, no, listen, this is this valve story. You've pushed it a little bit and you just need to be careful. So what had happened was, I think technically speaking or medically speaking, some enzymes got released into the bloodstream and that caused some complications. So I was really short of breath. I was almost out of breath completely at some points. So I literally thought I was dying. I was like, what the hell have I done? This is silly. But anyway, from there, it was a journey of seeing a cardiologist. Months ensued after that, went to go back to see my original cardiologist, guy by the name of Dr. Rob Routier. Arguably, again, product of some fine work at the end of it, but arguably one of the best cardiologists in this country. And he just said, listen, you're going to have to, start. This was probably a few months down the line, so almost 6 months later. Because I was seeing the cardiologist who treated me at that hospital. And then I just didn't feel, he was doing a good job, but I just wanted to go back to the guy who had my history. And I remember going to see him and he just he always had a lot to say and he was always like very dismissive. And as good of a cardiologist as he is, he was very like, just don't worry about this. You're fine, you're healthy, you're young, you're fit, all this sort of thing. And that appointment, he said very little. It was the first time he said very little. I could just see him looking at the screen, clicking his mouse away.
I'm sure it made you worried.
And I was just like, this is not the usual appointments we have. There's usually a bit of banter. He kind of just said, listen, he wants me to come see the cardiothoracic surgeon, who's the doctor who actually would do a surgery like that. And said, listen, you need to come see this guy. They want to do a 4D scan. So they did this proper. There was this new machine that they just brought into South Africa. And again, very quiet appointment, you know. And what happened after that was they were kind of like, listen, we need to do this thing sooner rather than later. They won't ever tell you when to do it, but they just told me, you know, you need to seriously start considering this.
Had he said that all the activity had done kind of exacerbated?
He didn't say anything about that. They just looked at where we were at that point. So, you know, I'd been going to gym. I mean, I've never been... I've never competed on stage or anything like that, but I was really enjoying the gym and we were just trying our hand at different types of fitness. And as you get older, really just enjoying, you know, that process. But yeah, he didn't really say anything about the cause. They were just looking at what they were dealing with at that point. And he was kind of like, I'll never forget, because they were kind of like, you know, I think we should do this thing sooner rather than later. And I remember him saying, I just said to him, listen, I just want to chat to my wife and my family, you know, can we go away? So then he said to me, I think it was like a Wednesday or a Thursday, I can't remember the exact day. And he said to me, so should we cancel the appointment on Monday then? So I thought he was joking. I thought he was like, oh, you know, he's silly. I mean, in my mind, I'm thinking this is something that takes months to prepare for. They've got to get all the right specialists, you know, everybody involved. And he was like, no, serious. He was like, okay, so we won't do it on Monday then. And I was like, no, I just need a day or two just to chat to the family.
It's quite a hectic surgery to have.
Yeah, so it basically happened a week later. But yeah, it's a full open heart surgery. They saw through your sternum, so they actually cut the bone in your chest. So I've got a nice big scar there. Sorry if I'm disturbing the mic. But open the heart up, and I've got a picture of that. It's quite interesting.
Well, I'll send it to me. I'll put it up on the video here.
I'll see if I can get it.
Yeah, if you can find it somewhere.
Yeah. I don't know. We might have to put a PG, but
that's okay.
Yeah, it's an insane thing. It's just it's an incredible marvel and miracle of the human body. So thank God, you know, very blessed that it went really well. You asked about the risks. Obviously, they're opening your chest, they're taking your heart almost out your chest.
There's lots of things that potentially
and because they were replacing the valve and the aorta, there were two big components there. But the valve itself is almost like a little cylinder. It's a little silver circle, literally, with two little flaps. So it literally looks like a cylinder in a car, and it opens and closes, opens and closes. And that's what they were inserting. And then the aorta they replaced with what I can only describe as a little material, like creepy crawly bit. That's kind of what it looks like. And it's a thin little piece of material, and they insert that in there. I can also get a picture of that actually. And then what happens is that then they place that in there, and then obviously there's a long recovery, but your body kind of grows around it. So all, you know, your vessels, everything that's your body, it's just incredible.
Yeah.
To know what your body's capable of in that sense, even outside of fitness. So I guess, you know, maybe what we're talking about today as well is it's just given me a very different perspective on health, on fitness. You know, I'm deeply appreciative for the ability to just be alive, which might sound over dramatic, but
people 100% do take that for granted. I mean, obviously, because you don't expect. Well, I think it's also human nature. We like to trick ourselves into thinking we're not going to die.
Yeah.
We don't like to think about our own mortality. We like to believe we're going to live forever. Because, I mean, it could literally happen like this at any instant. Yeah. Even without heart complications or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of always in the back of our mind that anyone we know could potentially pass away. Yeah. But we like to believe that we are immortal, especially in the fitness side. Sport people especially always like to believe that because we're healthier, because we're doing all these things, we will live longer. But even though you're being healthier, you had a heart defect from when you were young. So irrespective of how healthy you were, there's still the potentiality of something going wrong.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of my take from it is, and part of my message around, we'll talk about some of the other things that I've gone through, but like it's about turning your adversity into your advantage, you know, and that was a traumatic time. It was a good experience. It was healthy. It was a recovery. It was, like I said, very blessed that it went smoothly. It could have gone 100 different ways, but it always gives me this different perspective on health. And I think one of the things we see in sport and in fitness is people pushing themselves. You were speaking about high rocks, CrossFit, functional fitness, incredible sports, but you know, the premise is to really push yourself to see how much you can get out of your body. And I think that's a great thing. I think it's amazing if your body's healthy and you're strong, but I think it's just to have, everybody should just have that thing in the back of their mind, just to check the heart rate, just have a look at how things are working. And I guess just having that peace of mind and kind of just respecting your body. So the perspective it's always given me is not to hold back and not to not be active, because you could also just become sedentary and sit on the couch and be like, I'm not going to do anything because I don't want something to happen. And it's been a process of trusting my body again. And it's still to this day is something that I probably over listen, you know, as opposed to people who maybe, there's probably an error on both sides to either listen too much and worry about every flutter or every heartbeat or every sore muscle or pain in your arm or things that traditionally link back to heart issues, to the flip side of people not listening at all. And that's when sadly we're seeing, you know, in triathlons, in some of these competitions, people, you know, with myocarditis or heart issues or complications or hearts that are too big, that end up in very bad situations. So I guess it's somewhere you got to find that middle ground of trusting your body, but also respecting it enough to just keep an eye on your numbers, you know, have a look at your heart rate, get your checks done. It's the age old stuff, you know, and that's a message.
And it's also, I mean, I don't think there's any person, there might be some that would disagree, but almost everyone can agree that some form of activity will benefit you, irrespective of what issue you have. Even if you've, you know, got a terrible back problem, if you're able to swimming might, will definitely help you live longer and improve your body. If you know, just lifting weights, how that increases your longevity and your skeletal muscle, helping you in old age and all of that stuff. So any form of activity that doesn't obviously damage you further is going to be beneficial. And after the surgery, and when you got into training really like further distances and pushing yourself, was there like a noticeable difference in terms of maybe after a while you could see that you can just keep going?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's been a big blessing again, is just like this rediscovery of what true fitness is. Because like I said, not to sound like woe is me, but I was never really able to untap the full potential because there was this little limitation, if we can call it that. And so that discovery of what your body's capable of has been incredible. It's been scary at times, but it's been incredibly rewarding to really be like, wow, this is how it can be, you know. So it really was a second chance at health and fitness for me.
How much of that do you think was mental?
A lot. I mean, obviously there's the physical thing before, but I think the rediscovery of it was certainly a big mental process. And we'll talk about that in a minute as well. But for me, it's been a tumultuous process, if I'm honest, because there's so much more that goes into your mind. I mean, the first 3 to 6 months, I mean, to give you an idea, part of the physio you do, so after the heart surgery, you're in hospital I was there for 9, almost 10 days. 5 of those days you're in ICU with some pretty dire circumstances with the people that are around you, and you're aware, okay, it's gone well. But to paint a picture, and you might see it on my Instagram almost every year, I post on the 11th of September, the 14th of September, that, you know, this is something I'm grateful for, and I kind of have a little cathartic message to people just to remind them of their health and the blessing that it is. But I know my family's reaction, I think it was probably worse for them because they had to come and see me in that condition. I was kind of looking at the world outwardly, being like, hey, I made it. And every day was a step closer to recovery, to health and fitness. But jumping back to your question, the first physio we had, I remember being in ICU, and I think it was day 3 or 4. They then get you out the bed and someone walks with you, and you literally walk across the distance of this room effectively. And you come back, and then I got into bed, back into the hospital bed, and probably slept for 2-3 hours. I was exhausted from that little walk. So that's the start of it. And then I had a very slow walking training program that the physios and the doctors prescribe, and they kind of tell you, okay, do 500 meters today. And if I think back at that now, you know, I'm blessed to say, you know, being able to enjoy some 21 Ks, and that's kind of a distance I enjoy, and it's probably a distance I don't want to surpass in terms of running. But just to think back of that, you just have to have these reminders of, man, like what a journey. But very much a mental process. You know, in the beginning especially, there were days where you have like wins in your body or deferred pains, and like obviously they've cut through your chest here. So my whole right side of my chest had kind of collapsed. So you have to rebuild that muscle and kind of get a bit of posture. And I think to this day, I've got a bit of a slant from it. I've tried to correct it, but there's sometimes days, I mean, the one day I had this excruciating pain going down my right arm, you know, and you just hear all these things of, you know, people are reminded that like a lot of pain in the left arm can mean a heart attack. So even though it was on the other side, your mind goes to, okay, it's broken again, there's something wrong. Once you're out of hospital, you feel very vulnerable because there's not a nurse or someone you can call.
And also it's internal. It's not like a broken bone.
And you can feel your bones scraping together because they've got these wires that wire your sternum together. So again, not to sound over dramatic, but it's something you feel and listen to. And plus you've got this little ticker now, this little metal valve.
You can be dramatic. I mean, who else has had open heart surgery? Not many people.
But my wife and kids, to this day, if you put your head on my chest, you can hear the little metal ticker, and even the doctors, if they put their stethoscope on there,
so if you're really pushing hard when you're cycling, you can hear it.
I don't hear it anymore. I honestly don't. In the beginning, though, especially at night when I was in bed, like you'd sit there and you just hear this little tick, 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 tick. So it's just little things like that are great, that you're like, cool, it's working, it's healthy, but you've got this constant reminder of there's this trauma that's happened, and is it okay? Is it okay? Is it okay? That took me probably 3 years to get over, and probably to this day still have little moments of, okay, was that too much? Because now, being in a position to be able to be fit and healthy and to be pursuing bigger goals. And I guess maybe it is a blessing and a curse in that it like kind of helps you just remember just to be mindful of your body and just not go mad in terms of heart rate and how you push yourself. But the flip side is you listen to a lot more. So, sometimes you can overanalyze, and I've been doing more swimming now. So like little things like that, being out, in open water, just little things. There's a lot of different anxieties that come with it. So I've been writing a lot about that over the years. And
let's get into the book.
Yeah.
So mental health and sport, or what exactly is the book about?
So it's a spoiler alert, but I'll give you the title because I think it's
okay. Because I saw your post about it.
Yes, yeah. So the spoiler alert is I'll give you the title, or at least the title that I want it to be. Let's see, what the publishers say when we get to that point. And again, I'm speaking out of faith and ambition here, but the idea is to launch the book next year. But the concept was, and the title of the book is The Hell Inside My Head.
Okay.
And it's this whole message of, mental health is so prevalent at the moment. Everyone's talking about it, but it's almost, it's in everybody's faces, but I don't know if anybody is really getting to grips with how to cope with it properly. But for me, it was just a process of, I went through years of really debilitating anxiety around, stemming from the medical situations, if we can call it that. And it took a long time to cover that. But the journey was like, okay, let me start writing about this, because I just got to stages where it was so bad that I couldn't believe that this could just be happening to someone. I just thought, this is so debilitating. It's so, you go into your shell, you change who you are.
Especially with someone for the love of fitness as well.
Absolutely. And you're constantly surrounded by this space. So you feel like a bit of an outsider at times. But for me, it was more just about, I decided to start writing about what I was feeling and what I was going through, because I just decided in those moments, and it took me a while to get there, that this can't be for nothing. I can't go through this pain and this limitation again for no reason. So I thought, let me write, and I don't know what will come of it. Maybe it'll be a blog post, maybe it'll be a website. And over time, as I've started to chat to people and share some snippets of that writing with people who've also struggled, and that was kind of my intention, was I want to just share it with friends and family, or people, not even in industry, but just anyone who's battling with mental health, to say, listen, whatever your reason is, it might not be medical, it might be financial, it might be marriage, divorce, it could be kids.
Inside the head, the worry and all of that's pretty similar.
The basis is the same.
Yeah.
You go through trauma, and that triggers a level of anxiety or depression, and it's so common these days. Back in the day, they used to say it's like 1 in 4 people battle with it. More recently, I heard it's like 1 in 3. I think reality, if they're to truly diagnose, and the people that don't talk about it, I reckon everybody's battling with something.
Absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind that every single person, even because you can never tell what's going on in someone's head. So even by looking at someone and saying, oh, they've got it all together, they seem happy, and irrespective of that, everyone to different degrees experiences some form of trauma. And even that trauma might not be the stereotypical trauma like abuse or heart problems or all of that, but everyone's life is different, and the exposure to certain traumas dictates the ability to handle those traumas.
Absolutely.
Someone whose trauma could just be they've just started working and now they have to fend for themselves, whereas previously they were sheltered. That could be a form of trauma that they don't know how to handle 100%. Versus someone that was abused when they were young and they don't know. So like people, there's different levels of trauma, and some people can handle it better, but there's still struggles that every single human goes through. And I think we're constantly now bombarded on social media, especially with seeing how perfect lives are.
Absolutely.
And I think that overthinking of, but my life's not perfect. I don't have it all together. I don't X, Y, and Z. I don't have as much fun as this person on the weekend. And we're constantly bombarded with that. that person, look how well they're training. I've injured my leg. Like, there's so many things that we constantly see online that then makes us question, am I living a cool life? Am I enjoying life? And I think that also then plays on the mental health.
Absolutely. And as cliched as it is, I mean, you hear it and see it all the time. Like, that's what's happening. Everyone again is showing the best version of themselves. And obviously we, being in the industry we are exposed to a lot of different people, professional athletes, competing athletes, business owners, big brands, representing companies. Like, to me, you'd be surprised how many people at different levels, people that you look at every day, people that we watch on TV. And I've had some personal conversations with some of them and some of the struggles that they face. And it's a lot more prevalent than people think. And again, I suppose it's, get to your point, whatever the basis of the trauma is, however big or small, the principle is the same. So it's all relative. You don't have to have had a heart surgery or endured abuse, as terrible as that is, or gone through a big breakup or, lost a loved one. It's all relative. And I think part of it is to allow yourself to unpack and realize that it doesn't matter. Sometimes we as humans, we try and play it down. We're almost like, well, mine's not such a big deal, so I don't actually deserve, or I can't really say I'm battling with mental health, because why can I,
mine's so minor, that's hectic,
I mean, that person's gone through some real problems. For me, mine's are small, so you play it down and then you don't deal with it, because you kind of just sweep it under the rug. And I think that happens at all levels of trauma. So I think that's an important point to get across, is to let people be a little bit more forgiving of themselves and allow them to not stay there and sit in that woe is me mentality. Look for solutions, figure out how to get back to your best, whatever that looks like, but have a true perspective of what authentically is your best and what's achievable, but to not play down your battles. I think that's an important lesson that I've learned and would want to share with other people.
How much catharsis have you gotten through writing? Because I know journaling is exceptionally beneficial for me, and that's just for myself. Whereas you obviously initially maybe just started for yourself and then grew from there.
Yeah.
But how much self-growth came from just sitting down and writing something like that?
The most. It was a game changer for me. I can honestly say, and again, it's something a lot of people say, I think the two biggest game changers for me, well, there's three, but the two biggest ones was starting to write about it. It was a form of therapy, and I did see, clinical psychologists for a long time to unpack what it was I was going through, because it kind of hits you like a slap in the back of the head. You don't quite know, what is this? Why am I feeling this way? It surprises you, and it's often something that comes later. It's not something that in the moment, when you're in the eye of the storm, you really understand what you're going through. And even the surgery itself, so much was positive. It was recovery, it was beneficial. So the narrative was, hey, he's doing better, he's stronger, he's getting fitter, it was successful. So the whole time you're not thinking, but the reality is someone has sawed through your chest and dealt with one of your most vital organs, and that is a traumatic process. So for me, it was that. But to get back to the question, complete game changer to be able to write about it. Definitely from a mental health perspective. I think in terms of physically and mentally, running was something the doctor said early on. They said, listen, this is probably, and I actually used to hate running, to be honest.
Most people, until they really get into it.
Listen, I think to this day, that first K or two, everyone still hates it. But the doctor said, listen, what makes sense about running is that your heart rate's a lot more consistent. So it's not like mountain biking or explosive sports where you kind of doing a little bit and then suddenly you have to tap into that power and then your heart rate goes through the roof. They wanted me to do sport and exercise that kind of had more of a gradual. So you can go from a walk to a run. If you're a bit tired, you can walk back down. There's quite a, there's a nice sort of healthy...
Did they say try maintain a zone 2? Obviously, initially, I'm sure they'll probably be careful.
Yeah. Zone 2 was
max.
Phase 2, that was the next goal. I think the beginning was just kind of keep your heart rate low, just listen to your body, see how you feel, and kind of go how you're feeling. And unfortunately, and I guess part of what's beneficial about having heart surgery at 28, as opposed to 68 or 78, is that your body does recover from everything a lot quicker. So in that sense, it was good timing. But you do recover, and you do listen to it. But we kind of digressed. We're talking about the writing and the running. The running was really amazing. And then the other thing that a lot of people don't like to talk about is just vitamins, minerals, and in some cases medication. That's something I don't demonize. I feel like if you want to live your best life, you've got to do what you've got to do to improve your mental and physical state. So yeah, I've definitely, you know, gone through the mill in terms of using medication as well, if it just gives you that extra little bit of lift for the low times. And you know, to me, it was something that was helpful. So it's not something people advocate for.
How have you navigated that? Because there are certain negative connotations.
No, 100%. And I think you don't want to be on something forever. But if you're really at your lowest of lows and you're doing the exercise and you're writing and you seeing a psychologist or talking to a family member, doing all the things that, you know, everybody says you should do, if that's still not working after like 3, 6, 12 months, you know, sometimes your brain is just at a level where it just needs a little bit of a boost. So I think long term, it's not something you want to stay on from my experience, but to have it for spells, even if it's a few months or years, to just help you cope with the lowest of the lows. It's only been beneficial to me, to my family, to my wife, to my marriage. So I don't tell people not to. I don't advise people not to do it, which is sometimes, you know, in our industry, not the right thing to say, perhaps, but it's true. And I think I always try to be an authentic person. So, I think it's if it can help you, you know, to stay on a low dose of something for tough periods of time. I think if it becomes the only thing that you're doing, I think that can be a bit of a worry, because you're not really doing the work yourself. You're not talking to people. You're not exercising. So I think it's a balance. I think it's about approaching all the solves. And again, I would say medication maybe is the last one. If you can kind of work through it without that, 100%. Obviously for me, it was a bit tougher than that. So, we did do that. But yeah, just it's been a ride. Yeah.
How has the relationship, you know, going through the surgery with your family improved in terms of, you know, just valuing time together, the difficulty of the situation, strengthening the bonds?
Yeah. Listen, I think when you go through that, again, we spoke about it before, it's just that adversity becomes your advantage. It's something that just gives you such a different perspective. I mean, I've spoken about it a lot in terms of health and fitness, in terms of how you respect your body and you listen to it more and you're a bit more careful and cautious. But I think outside of that, when you have, you know, often people say, like, what would you do today if tomorrow was your last day? And to have, I mean, there was the surgery, and then we'll talk about some of the more recent incidents as well, because when you go through something that's life-changing, or when you're facing potential death in the face, or a high-risk situation like that, your brain goes to a place of, there's so many other things that just don't matter anymore. You just want to see your wife's face, your little boys grow up. When I had the heart surgery, we didn't have kids yet. So that was a big thing for me, is that I wanted to make sure I had a legacy, I had children. So that was part of the scary process for me. Like, maybe I've forgotten a little bit, but like, I don't remember being scared of the surgery. I remember being scared of what happens if I don't do the surgery. So to me, to rediscover that and to really just value every day, you do still kind of drift from those thoughts over the years. Like, there's sometimes these reminders where you're going and you're working hard, and we're all ambitious, and work is quite intense at times, and things happen in the family, or, you know, little dramas pop up, and you kind of get caught in the moment again. And then you have to have that check of, remember how you felt, remember how you said you wouldn't do that, or how you wouldn't place so much importance on whatever it is, making money or different relationships, or trying to be important or famous, or whatever it might be that you're pursuing in life. You have those little checks. So I'd say at least that you do kind of backtrack or backslide, so to speak, in terms of that process of thinking. But principally, it's always there. You've always got that extra little bit in the back of your mind of, remember how you felt. And I think that's a huge advantage, because some people, not to say I want people to go through trauma, but if you don't have that, you sometimes don't have that reminder. And everybody just, you know, you want to be the right person in the right space. You want to be well known. You want to be successful, especially living in Johannesburg. It's a very materialistic driven city. And, you get caught up in that, you know. You want to be successful, you want to be well known, you want to achieve great things in sport, you want to participate in all these big events, and I think it just, to me, it's you having these reminders of what's truly important. Like, if you had one day left tomorrow, how would you live it? Who would you spend that time with? And it wouldn't be with half of the people that we do end up spending time with. And it probably wouldn't be doing some of the activities or events that we do, you know, if you had that limited time. So it gives you a different pressure and perspective to really, truly, like, take the most out of every day. But yeah, it's not a perfect process, and I'm certainly guilty of regressing and going back to the grind and just pushing.
Every single human
and even not listening to my body, or not giving as much time to your family. I mean, I'm doing some training now for my first ever Half IronMan, and then that's a goal I've been wanting to do. The truth is I'm mainly doing it because I want to make it part of the cathartic process of what can be done despite having sort of mental health setbacks. But with that comes a big time commitment. And even yesterday, I mean, I'm just going to be honest, like last night, I went for a swim at the gym at Virgin Active, and said to my wife, listen, I've got to do a training session last night, but I don't want to spend time away from them, so let's go out for dinner, and then at least like I can quickly finish, go downstairs, and we'll just go grab a burger or something like that. And I was saying to my sons, I've got two sons who are 7 and 11, and the 7-year-old is a lot more blunt and direct. He's like the little boss in the family. And I was just saying to them, boys, I just want to explain again why Daddy's spending so much time, training. I've got this event, and I just want to do it once, to be honest. I genuinely can say, hand on my heart, I don't want to do another one. Because I feel like this is the push for me. It's like the most I ever want to do. So
for anyone, it's still hectic.
Well, that's the thing, yeah. So, and again, I'm in a place of good fitness and good health. Things are feeling good. My mind's in a good space, and I feel like I wanted to do Durban. A lot of people say when you're doing your first Half Ironman, that's the one to do because the run and the cycle's a bit flatter. But got a little bit sick just before that and kind of hit a bit of a wobble, and I was a little bit nervous. So I was like, okay, let's not rush this. There's no urgency. And then I thought, okay, well, Muscle Bay is the last one of this year. Let's do that one. I know it's a bit more hilly, but the swim is apparently good. But anyway, getting back to my point, I was just explaining to the boys, listen, this is why I've spent a bit of time away and, I've been training some more. And then my 7-year-old just says to me, yeah, instead of spending time with your children on a Sunday. That's what he said to me. And I was like, flip, that's brutal. It like hit me in the heart.
But also I think that honesty,
yeah,
it's better than like him having animosity and keeping it in. Because I think I think he's just saying that in jest.
Absolutely, yeah. No, for sure. I mean, I took it light. We had a chuckle about it, but I even thought about the rest and I was like, flip, that, it is true. That's the reality.
And I think it's also something that's not spoken about a lot is time away from anyone in your life because of training, and especially the endurance type events
100%,
where it's 4 or 5 hours of your weekend per day, or like a Saturday and then the Sunday again. During the week, minimum an hour, 45 minutes. And you do need supportive people around you because you can't live this life or pursue these type of goals without those people that will support you, because you're tired as is because of the training. You still need to work. You still need to do everything that you need to do on top of the training, and then to not have a supportive family just makes it so much more difficult. So to have those people that understand your goals and understand your vision and your, what your pursuits are is very special.
Absolutely, and I'm very fortunate to have my wife Alison is really, not just saying this because it's going to get recorded, hopefully I get some brownie points anyway, but from my heart I'm so grateful to have someone who's strong, who's capable, and who understands why I'm doing this. It's not necessary. There's no reason why I have to do it. I've got my own reasons, and she's truly supportive, and it's just little things. Like I work quite hard in the week, so she handles a lot at home. She's a teacher, so she has a little bit more time in the afternoons and the evenings, but she handles a lot with the boys. So to take that weight, people underestimate, just being with kids at school, teaching all day, then going home and being with the kids till 7:30 sometimes when I get back. I get the easy route, I guess, in that sense. And, we work well together and we've got a great relationship. But like you say, I definitely couldn't be doing half these things if I was married to someone different who didn't get it and who wasn't supportive. And I truly am eternally grateful for her role in this process. It's little things like that are not actually little things. It's the game-changing thing that if I had someone who was nagging at me and getting upset, and that fully would be entitled to. It's a big commitment, but it's also part of the reason why I only want to do this once. I will continue to do the individual cycling and running events, and I actually enjoy running the most. I mean, that. It's kind of where my passion lies, and that's why I'll kind of stick to that. But what's also been really, I was joking about Josh, the youngest one, with his chirp, but he also comes and does parkrun with me now, and he did a PB on Saturday, and it was just so cool to see this little 7-year-old run almost 80% of a parkrun, which is 5Ks. That for me, I didn't start that young in sports, so for me it's cool to see them wanting to do more and spend time with me doing active things.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned some recent complications.
Yeah, so there's been a few. It's also part of why I can write a little bit about this in the book. But in 2021, I had two different incidents. The one was I'd been overseas. So because of the heart surgery, I stay on warfarin, which is a blood thinner. There are other ones that you can use, but that's
Is this when you were living in the UK?
Well, since the heart surgery. So
okay.
yeah, but so we were actually in South Africa. We had gone to the UK to visit my wife's folks, and with that, you kind of get a bit lapsy-daisy with the testing because you're supposed to test your INR, which is your blood thickness. What happened was I'd gone through a spell of probably 8 or 9 weeks. I usually test it about once a month, once every 2 months, less so now because it's a lot more consistent. But you have to keep your blood thickness in a certain range. So your INR needs to be between 2.5 and 3.5.
Okay.
So the higher it is, the thinner your blood, the lower it is, the thicker your blood. And sometimes with travel, I don't know why, it's the environment, the travel, the different climates, I don't know what
Pressure,
it is.
maybe
Yeah, it does impact it. So you have to just keep an eye on that. And little things like it's not completely restrictive, but one of the things you have to avoid is vitamin K because that thickens your blood. So you kind of have to have things like avo and leafy greens in moderation. You can't not have them. But long story short, we had gone overseas and hadn't tested for a while and came back. And one day I was sitting at work and just felt quite dizzy and confused and started slurring my words a little bit. And I was like, flip, what's going on? I was actually on a phone call. I had to end it quite abruptly and probably very strangely for the person that was on the other end of the call. And what had happened was I'd had a TIA, which is a trans-ischemic attack, which is a minor stroke. And what had happened was my blood got too thick. So that was in the beginning of 2021. And ended up again having to rush to the doctor. We didn't know what was going on, and a cardiologist wasn't happy with me at all. He was like, "What are you doing? This is crazy. Like, you need to be checking it." And I was like, "Well, I've been consistent for years, like almost a decade or more now." But it was just a moment of just kind of taking it a bit too casually and not checking up. And my INR was at 1.3, which means what had happened was a clot went to my brain, so it caused that temporary
drunkenness.
Basically, it just kind of knocks you out. And even for a day or two after that, you're just talking nonsense, really. So very fortunate again to escape what could have been a much worse stroke. And then in the second part of that year, later in the year, had the opposite where the doctors, I'd been battling with my gut health, and I was always worried, the reality is warfarin is rat poison. So to take that every day of your life is probably not, and it's in minor doses. So it's not going to do anything to you, keeps the blood thin and it's there for a reason. But I always just wondered, taking this ongoing, is that a problem, But anyway, so what happened was discovered some issues in my gut, and they discovered some ulcers. And at the end of 2021, I had a moment where I woke up in the middle of the night and just wasn't feeling good, went to the bathroom, felt very dizzy, lightheaded, so weak, woke up later, ready to go to the office, and I couldn't walk, I couldn't get out of bed, I couldn't really, without wanting to collapse. And they discovered that the ulcers had been bleeding internally, so I'd lost I don't know what crazy amount of blood.
Sure.
So you obviously measure your blood sort of quantity through your hemoglobin, and it's supposed to sit around, I think, 13 and 15. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it had dropped to about 7.5, 8 or something like that, and they had to put in 7 bags of blood into me to get that back up. So that was the opposite then. Then I'd had the too thick, and then the blood was too thin, and obviously with the warfarin, if something's bleeding internally, it just bleeds out a lot quicker. So I almost bled out internally. And then last year, got diagnosed on my 40th birthday with lymphoma in my lower intestine. And it's just a crazy thing. And it's something, I just want to be authentic about, because again, people look at this person who represents a health and fitness brand, and that's in this world that we're in, and they picture perfect health. And the reality is you're not sort of safe from any of these things that can happen. And fortunately, thank God, again, the process was very successful. But there's a lot, again, mentally that goes into that. You're like, seriously, I've never smoked a cigarette in my life. I don't drink a lot. And, you just think to yourself, why me? We're following the right things. We have a good diet, I'm active. But it just happens, these things come up, and obviously the heart surgery has had other little complications like these, or big complications. But for me, it's just been a process of, again, that one was once again that hectic reminder of, because we didn't know how advanced it was. At the end of the day, you hear that you've got cancer, The news I literally got on the 8th of March. So it was on my 40th birthday. That was my birthday present.
Jeepers.
So, but again, just decided to really take the bull by the horns, and not to say it was a squeaky clean, perfect process, but underwent something called immunotherapy, which is a much more targeted form of chemo, basically. And within 4 treatments, it was clear. So grateful for that. We finished 6 treatments, have to go for ongoing tests and that sort of thing every 2 or 3 months. But that's been really good. And that's why I just thought, while things are good, one of the things, again, that helped me through that was I just decided to keep working, listen to the body, be careful, especially the days after treatments. But I kept running. There was one day where I had a treatment on a Friday and I went for a run on the Saturday morning. I'm not saying people should do that, but that was my way of saying, I'm not going to change my life. Like, I'm going to keep living as though I'm good, I'm healthy. And it helped my mind, So
and I think that is a massive thing with any form of, or illness in general, is also the mental side.
Absolutely.
A friend of mine's dad is being very fortunate enough to be in remission now, but he says the only reason I've been beating this is because of my mindset towards it.
Yeah.
He says, because I am positive, I'm happy, I am constantly thinking, because just stress, increasing cortisol makes everything just gets worse and compounds the more negative and the more in your own head you become. So
Absolutely.
I think sticking to the routine, sticking to the positivity, having the family around you can only help the environment to decrease the cancer environment, but increase your potentiality to get better.
Yeah. No, 100%. And I think like all those things are crucial, to have that family support, to have people around you. But the biggest thing was just to like, what alternative do you have? You can hold back and be like, okay, well, I'm going to stop exercising. I'm going to sit in my ball. I'm going to just go into my cocoon. And you can become quite obsessed with the process because you so desperately want it to be better. But again, firstly, the reminder of when you first get that news, you don't know how advanced it is, how serious it is. Like, is this a 1-year thing? Is it a 6 months thing? You heard the worst, so your mind goes to those places. And it was like, cool, one step at a time. Let's see the oncologist. Let's do the treatment. Let's just see what happens. Let's be positive. And I always tell people, I had probably like 2 or 3 days where really low days. The first day, obviously, hearing the news. But very quickly, I was like, game on, let's tackle this thing. And I'm not saying just having a strong mind is, I don't want to talk down.
So when you were in the lows, what do you think mainly got you back up? Like, what kind of steps or what thoughts or?
I think they hit you by surprise. You just have a day where you're like, flip, man, this is irritating. Like, why do you have to, it's almost embarrassing, which sounds terrible, but I'm just being honest. Like, you're almost like, you in this position, in the health and fitness industry, and these things are happening to you, and you haven't caused it, hopefully, to yourself. And I think it was just the decision on the day. Like, the first thing I did was got emotional. My brother was there. We were emotional. We embraced. Like, we took a moment. We were like, okay, cool.
Which you need to do as well.
Yeah, and it took a few hours to really just accept what I just heard. Again, I didn't know what stage we were at. And I think once I saw the oncologist the first time, there was a lot more peace of mind. She said, it's going to be okay. This is what we're going to do. It felt like we had a game plan, and we had so that was probably a big turning point for me. But talking about, what you do on those days, I think it was about deciding on day one, we were going to be victorious. We were going to defeat this thing. And again, I want to be very clear to say that that's not something that can work for everybody. I'm not saying that's the only thing that's going to cure a physical, medical issue, but it certainly helped. And it certainly was like that decision to be like, the game plan is we're going to win this thing. And actually, to be honest, we told the family on the day, once I'd had the moments, I was also here by myself. My wife and kids were still in the UK, so that made it harder. But I said to my brother, let's open a bottle of champagne. And they were like, are you okay? Like, I said, I'm going to autograph this bottle, and we're going to celebrate the future success over this, and look back at this day and be like, we said we would do it. So again, I don't want to play down the importance of nutrition, of therapy, of the chemo, of the wonderful medical marvels that we have at our disposal. And I can say, in this day and age, we are a lot more advanced in terms of the options for treatment, but there's no guarantee. I still consider myself extremely lucky and completely blessed that it was successful. And I'm very mindful that I have to make sure that, I'm doing all the right things, not to bring it back, and to make sure I look after my gut, look after the areas that it was impacted by. But yeah, I think you have to pull yourself out of those moments. I think you have to let yourself have them. Don't be like, oh no, you can't be upset, you can't be sad. Have them, but then get it out your system and be like, cool, back on the road, let's carry on, you know.
Yeah, I think just looking at the impermanence of life, and life is not fair. So, you know, what did you do to deserve all of these complications that you've had? Life is not fair. Life is in constant change. And you have been lucky and fortunate and blessed and all of the things to recover the way you have. Other people might not be. And I might get something that I don't recover from and then I die. So like life is completely unfair.
Absolutely.
And things happen to some people and they turn out okay. Some people don't turn out okay. And that's, I think, understanding the impermanence of life and understanding that life is just not fair. And I mean, I often, you know, like let's say it's usually always like if I had to get Uber Eats. Actually, don't tell anyone that I get Uber Eats. No, I'm joking. But
depends what you're ordering.
It's just a Nando's healthy chicken. That's all it is.
Let's go with that.
But the delivery guy comes, and I'm just looking at him, I'm like, I feel so, like, you feel sorry for people that now have to be a delivery guy. Like, yes, it's better than not having a job, of course. But it's just like, what did I do? And how am I fortunate enough to be born into the family I was, went to the school. Like, I did nothing to deserve the life that I've gotten. That guy did nothing to deserve the life he's gotten. And I think we just need to count our blessings because things are amazing at times, bad at other times, and it just happens that way. And it's not like something that you can do now will make something else bad in the future not happen. You know, it's kind of just understanding life can change at any point and just be present and be blessed and realize how blessed you are in every moment. Because as you mentioned earlier, you know, the family thing and all of that, what you have now, what you were wanting to have then.
Absolutely.
So don't think, okay, what's next? It's, I wanted kids, I wanted to recover. Now I've got the kids, I have recovered. Let me be grateful for what I've got.
And why is it so hard? I think people naturally gravitate to what they don't have and what they still need to. And I think that's the fine line of ambition and being grateful, is just to remember to just celebrate the small ones and the big wins. And like you said, something I've heard a lot, so you're probably listening to similar podcasts that I am.
Most likely.
To kind of hear that thing of where you're at now. 5 years ago, you wanted that, you know, 10 years ago wanted that, you know, whether it was recovery from a medical point of view, or whether it was financial success or ambition or career, physical looks, appearance, whatever it might be, you have to like really, and it's an art. I mean, I battle with that too. I'm naturally someone who worries probably too much and is always thinking. I think it's good to be a visionary and to think of a plan. And even with the brands we are lucky to work with, you're always thinking of what's the next one. How do you become better? How do you become greater? How do you do more? How do you impact the earth? And I'm very philanthropical in that way. I mean, when you talk about the delivery guys, like I think about how do we make South Africa better? How do we make South Africans better? Not just physically, mentally. How do we become a better nation? You know, you're always thinking of what's that next thing. But sometimes we have to take the little ones, take the Springbok victory and seeing the crowd and seeing the mixed races and genders and everybody just coming together as South Africans, being like South African, you know, like let's celebrate those moments. And I guess that's the message, is having these, albeit sometimes very traumatic reminders, is kind of just a reminder to check yourself and just really try and submerge yourself in being like, even now, like I've been wanting to have this chat with you for a while and been putting it off. And eventually I was like, let's just do it. Let's have the conversation. You know, we are very blessed. And like you say, we forget in life, there's always going to be someone that's ahead of you in different aspects, and there's always someone that's behind you. And I think it's about having goals, but respecting where you are and trying to bring people with you, paying it forward, getting people closer to where you are in different stages. And that's something I really want to do a better job of, is just, you know, naturally humans, we don't mean to be, but we're selfish. We focus on our own problems, our own time. And that's one of the things I actually write about in this, I call it a book. It hasn't actually become a book yet, but it will be one. Is one of the therapy mechanisms for me was like, there was one day where I was like, well, when I'm down, I want to do something better for someone else, because at least I feel like I'm empowering and I'm helping someone. So I'm big on lifting others up and trying to support others. And I think that's what we're really here to do as humans. We get so distracted by what we see and the life we want to live and the car we want to drive and the watches we want to wear. And, you know, you get caught up in that, and it's almost like one day you'll die and none of that will come with you. So what can you do for the people around you, your immediate family and inner circle of trust? But I think what happens in those processes, also those circles do become a little bit smaller, because you suddenly realize, okay, like what is really important now? But paying it forward is big, man. We're here to serve one another, and hopefully through the businesses, the jobs, the tasks, the exercises we do, we can do that really effectively.
Yeah, and I think it's, you know, a lot of people have this, what is the meaning of life? You know, why are we here? And what is constant around everyone is the fact that we are the same. We are all human. We are all on earth. And why not to be in service of each other? Because, as I mentioned earlier, the luck thing, some people are born into poverty, some people wealth, whatever. To no fault of anyone's, it just happens that way. So I need to, because I've been fortunate, give back to someone that maybe hasn't been fortunate. Try uplift, try help, because it's just luck. So I need to, because I've been fortunate, give a little bit and to help. And people that are more fortunate than me, I might be benefiting a lot because of them. So I think constantly just working and being in service of each other, I think is the best way to get purpose in life. Because people, we've all seen, the more kind you are, the better you feel about yourself, the better you feel, the more you, if you don't feel like taking that person to the airport, but then you've done it, like, okay, actually I feel a little bit better. And I think that's, for me, what life should be about, is just trying to help people. And I mean, you in a very fortunate position to do that with Dis-Chem and Dischem, because there's a lot of, you know, charity work that can go around and uplifting communities, and you know, through sport and through activity. So that also must be very nice for you to be able to, you know. Yeah,
it's very rewarding. I mean, the one thing you realize, you can't help everybody, but you can certainly try. And I think from a sporting point of view, Dischem kind of features strongly there. Like we're in a wonderful position and very blessed to have done well over the years. It's 20 years that the brand's been going now. And I've been a part of that for 16 and a half, nearly 17 years. And to see what it was, I mean, I was a little promoter in Dis-Chem when we saw this red brand for the first time. We're told, you know, there's a Dis-Chem brand. It's something new and exciting. And, you know, I don't think any of us could have imagined what it would become. But, you know, that success has enabled us to support sporting careers, to support South African athletes, to support teams, to support charities. And obviously Dis-Chem does that on a whole nother level. You know, they've got their foundation that's been going for so long. And I love that. I love that part of the business. I've always, to be frank, like I've always wanted to try and work to get into a position of influence or management, or, you know, something where you have the room where you can talk to people and share ideas and try and make a change. So, you know, that's been very rewarding, and it's something we aspire to all the time, is to see like what little things can we do, you know, what little initiatives can we do. We've just done something now with Reach for a Dream. How do we empower these dreams? How do we just add our little bit just to drop? It doesn't mean your whole business must become a charity. At the end of the day, it's still a commercial entity. But that's probably the most exciting part of what we do, outside of the numbers, the figures, growing a business. It's a very competitive space, lots of good brands out there as well, and kudos to all of them. But I think we've just tried to do things in a very authentic way, and really try and make a difference. You know, if the brands we work with and have make people's lives better, make their health better, help them stay motivated to become active, to become healthier. And again, to add to that piece, like you say, where you can give back to the communities, the people around us. I think that's the dream.
You know, you mentioned not being able to help everyone. I remember my mom, I don't know when she told me a story, but she was telling me a story, I'm sure people have heard of it, maybe even you have, where there was just 1 million starfish washed up on the beach. And there was just, it was, I don't know, early morning, and someone saw this person picking one up, taking it to the beach, picking one up, taking it to the water. And then someone came up to him like, what are you doing? You're never going to be able to save all these starfish. And then he picks up the starfish like, well, I made a difference to that one. Picks up the next one, I made a difference to that one. And I think it doesn't matter the scale at which you can help people. It's being able to, if just helping one person, just giving that person who didn't ever have a soccer ball, now a soccer ball. Educating these people from a disadvantaged background on race nutrition, like all of that kind of stuff. Just helping one person, and that person can help someone else. So it's exponential. And just trying to help, I think.
Yeah.
And I've definitely seen that with Dis-Chem, and it's actually incredible because I'm coming from a bodybuilding background. There was a lot, and this is just in terms of the growth.
Yeah.
There was there still are supplement stores that stocked a lot of what's in Dis-Chem now. But it's just fascinating to see how Dis-Chem has grown the market within the living fit space, where there aren't really supplement stores, like individual supplement stores anymore. Or maybe they are in like the smaller regions. But it's just interesting to see now Dis-Chem has become the place to get your supplements. Whereas previously it wasn't. Maybe like the last 10 years, it's almost transformed into the place for supplements. Whereas previously it might have been the stores.
Yeah, listen, I mean, they're very fortunate to be very dominant in this space. I think the reality is like it comes down to, I mean, if you look at the business things and all the right things we need to say in terms of having range, good service, good pricing, like that makes, all the difference. But I think as a business, they genuinely care. They're trying to look at things that are innovative. And I think one of the big things that's happened in the last, I would say, decade, actually, it feels less than that, but started a long time ago, is just better regulation in terms of quality, in terms of what people can say on products, in terms of what's in the product versus what's on the label. And I think they've really taken that by the horns and really made that the bedrock of what they keep on the shelves. We subjected to it as Biogen, as a private label brand for them. And that quality process and that stringentness of the people that manage that is world class. I can honestly say that. I've spent some time in the UK. They've got regulations there too, as do many other countries. But South Africa has some of the tightest regulations in the world now, both in terms of sports supplements and in terms of complementary medicine. So it's actually great because it keeps us on top of our game, and it makes sure that what they keep on their shelves is good quality. So when customers come in there and they're spending significant amount of money that they could be putting into food, into other aspects of their lives, petrol, whatever, that they're getting value for money, they're getting a good service, and that they're getting something that genuinely benefits their health. So I think that heightened focus, not that they've always been about that as a business, but I really think, and I know firsthand, that they take it extremely seriously. They've got a full team. We sometimes joke that they're the fun police. Being in marketing, you kind of just want to make it as amazing as possible and say all the great things that really build up the brand and the products. But to really be authentic about what does this product deliver for you? What does it actually do? How will it benefit you, both in performance, in your health, your mind, whatever? To have that governed and to have people looking at all the different aspects of it. I think because of that, the philosophy is to only keep what is compliant. So if there is any issue with products, it gets pulled, it gets quarantined. There's a process. There's things we miss out on, certain opportunities from a growth perspective by not listing certain products or certain concepts or fads. And I think they've really they've stuck to their guns in terms of what they're about. And again, it's a big business. So if there is any issues or PR issues in this space, the tallest trees catch the most wind. So, retailers like Dis-Chem will be at the forefront, so they have to. But yeah, it's been good and very blessed to be a part of a team that's very passionate about what we do. We really firsthand can say behind the scenes what happens there in terms of checking products, in terms of the decision making of how to market, what to list, what to keep on shelves, and what messages to put out there. And I think with the recent rebranding of Better Health Starts Here, there's an even sort of stronger call to what Dis-Chem is about. And it's a very exciting business. So, it'll be interesting to see where they go in the next 10 years.
Yeah, it's exciting. Any last bit of advice, wise words about mental health, about health complications, about anything in closing?
Sure. On the spot now.
Yeah, on the spot.
I think the one thing I wanted to wrap up on, when we were talking about giving back and that sort of thing, I always remember a quote from the movie Tears of the Sun. I don't know if you saw it with Bruce Willis. It was one of those typical...
Might have been a bit before my time.
Yeah, I'm a little bit older than you. So anyway, it was a good movie with Bruce Willis. But again, the typical...
Well, now I'm going to go watch it.
Yeah, you must watch it. It's a good one. It's a little bit intense, but it's, they're coming to Africa. The Americans come and save the day, typical big American production. But one of the things I always remember is the quote at the end of that movie. And I'm paraphrasing because I probably won't get it right, but they always just say, evil prevails when good men do nothing. And I think a lot of us, every person, I believe, has an element of good in them. And I think, like you say, we're here to serve one another. We're here to look after one another. And I think in the world of an age of social media and all these things, there's so much hate speech and stuff going out there. And I just think we can be a little bit kinder to one another and to just think about what someone else is going through. I think my parting thought